In recent years, I feel like Japanese music has garnered more and more worldwide recognition, but with this recognition comes a heavy cost. No, I'm serious. I'm going into crippling debt buying all these records. Today's video simply serves as a comprehensive guide to buying Japanese music. We'll be discussing different ways on how to obtain these physical media, whether that's online through specific websites or in person at a record store. This video is not sponsored in any way, but if you'd like to support, there are numerous ways you can do so down in the description below. And the last thing I want to say before I start is I will be focusing on Japanese music because it is what I'm most familiar with and where my passion lies, but a lot of these points and suggestions can apply to buying music from other countries as well. The only difference being you probably have to do a bit of research as far as finding the right places to find what you're looking for. The world of the internet might be a scary place because it's so vast, but I'm going to start off with the most accessible sites to use when making purchase of physical Japanese music. My number one go-to is Discogs. Discogs is a music database and marketplace, which is helpful if you're looking for specific formats and pressings. Now, not all pressings are deemed equal. You may find through forums and reviews that one pressing might be better than another, and Discogs is a really great place to look for that sort of thing. You can sort releases by year and the country they were sold in, and really zero in on the specific pressing that you want. You can find albums new and used here, along with various things like EPs, DVDs, singles, and stuff that's no longer in print. So I have purchased quite a few albums on Discogs. This is probably my first Discogs purchase. This is Scenery by Ryo Fukui. I mean, we're on YouTube. You guys all know what this album is. After I got back from Japan, I kind of missed out on this one, so I decided to get Cologne. This is a city pop album. This is really cool. And I will say this now, but later in the video I'll mention stuff about seam splits, and this one does have one, unfortunately, when it got shipped, but anyway. And like I said, Discogs is also great for CDs. That's where I got the CD copy of Flood, and also Heavy Rocks by Boris. If you've already made up your mind and you're going to use Discogs, I'd like to stress one simple rule, and that is do not put items in your cart that you don't intend to buy. The site is made up of many small businesses, and putting an item in your cart basically means the seller is going to be reserving that specific item for you. If you leave it in your cart for too long, it will probably be removed, and you could receive a negative buyer rating, which could impact your ability to buy music from Discogs in the future. I learned this from experience one time when I was just starting out on the site, and I've never made the same mistake again. It's just something to keep in mind if you're going to use Discogs specifically. Of course, another well-known site to use is eBay. eBay is more of an auction-based site, so if you prefer to bid on items in hope of scoring a good deal, this might be the option for you. Although I will say, in my experience, whenever I find an album on here, it usually gets bid up to some unreasonable price in the last few hours of the auction, so I personally wouldn't recommend, but I also prefer to buy things outright instead of bidding and stressing out and going back every 5 minutes to check it. I would say as far as the selection of music that they have on eBay, you might find that it's a bit less than Discogs. If you're a CD buyer, you might find what you're looking for, but I mainly see vinyl records being sold here. There are also quite a few Japanese record stores that actually sell on eBay, two notable ones being Face Records and Ella Records. More on these stores later. Now, obviously, when buying any used goods, you have to make sure that you're dealing with a reputable seller, and eBay is certainly no exception. I've had great experience using eBay in the past for things that weren't music, but it's just something to keep in mind. Of course, I would be amiss to leave out any American vendors. Stores like Turntable Lab and Light in the Attic often import brand new Japanese releases and represses. You just have to keep an eye out on their site for pre-orders because sometimes they sell out quickly depending on the album. Personally, I've purchased from Light in the Attic quite a few times, and they have really great customer service. They're really great people. So like I said, I do have some experience from Light in the Attic. My first album from them was this one, this first Light album. It's a really cool city pop album. I do have experience with their customer service because there's actually a pressing error on this album, and it sounds really distorted on the last track, so I contacted them. They were really cool about it. They sent me a partial refund, so that was really nice. And of course, I got these two Fooly Cooly soundtracks. They were both from Light in the Attic as well. Yeah, the pressing quality on these is phenomenal. Of course, you can always shop online at the label's dedicated record shop just to find what you're looking for. Believe it or not, sometimes it's just easier to get it that way than buying from a third party like Discogs. If you live in America, one of the greatest independent record shops here, as you might know, is of course Third Man Records, and that's where I got some of these Boris albums. I think this one is the first press on vinyl actually, which is kind of neat. Also Heavy Rocks. But of course, with more obscure stuff, you have smaller labels like repressing things. So like for example, this Discography by The Nurse is a Japanese all-female punk band. It's a really cool album. And I also picked up this one from the label's website. This is a Message by Grimm. This is a very sort of noise artist, but this one he put together a bunch of folky tunes, so yeah. On the flip side, you could support the oligarchy and try Amazon. But honestly, I really hesitate to recommend Amazon as far as the Japanese music selection goes. There's not really a great selection, and oftentimes they'll put up the listing for pre-orders only for it to be removed and to cancel your order by the time the album's supposed to ship, so it's very unreliable. Now, if you're looking for a dedicated Japanese website to buy Japanese music from, I think CD Japan is the premier online shop for any new releases, regardless of format. They're a reputable site that has tons of different options for shipping, and they also offer other goods as well, such as DVDs, figurines, and games if you're into that sort of thing. The website is in English, so it's simple enough to understand without needing to translate the page or decipher anything. I personally have not purchased music from here, but I've had a friend who has and said it was fine. His only complaint was it did take a while to get to him, but there were no issues to report. Here's where things might get a bit difficult. These next two methods I put in a separate category because of the language barrier and the purchasing method. They are buying direct or using a proxy service. If you're going to buy directly from a Japanese website, the main issue you might run into is everything is in Japanese and there's usually no English translation button. Unless you have some basic knowledge of Japanese, it might be difficult to create an account and make purchases. Some websites also require a Japanese address or phone number as well. You also might run into the problem of shipping, as in there are many places that do not offer shipping overseas. You also might not realistically save a lot of money going this route, which is why I usually end up going to Discogs or purchasing from an American store that has imported a new release. I would only recommend you do this if you're looking for some very exclusive thing you can't find anywhere else. I do have experience ordering this way from HMV Japan. I will say that I was fairly uncertain my album was even going to come. I vaguely recall having to wait a while, but eventually I got it with no issues. This one is the online purchase from HMV Japan. This is Magical by Junko Hashi. I didn't really think they were going to repress it either, but as soon as they did, I knew I just jumped on that immediately. So, and of course, when this was announced, I had to get this. This is Zazen Boys Rondo. This is their latest album. I really hope one day that they end up pressing all their other albums on vinyl, but you know, we'll see. Amazon Japan is another place to directly order from that's similar to CD Japan, but the caveat is you might need a Japanese Amazon account, and some items aren't really available to ship worldwide, so you have to keep that in mind if you're going to go that route. For all the effort that both of these methods take, I really would just recommend sticking to Discogs or CD Japan, unless again you're looking for a very specific release that is not being sold anywhere else. My last recommendation for buying online is using a proxy service like Buyee or Zen Market. In case you're not familiar, the way it works is you go to a Japanese site and find the item that you want to buy, and then you use the proxy service's website to purchase it with the addition of whatever fee they will charge on top of the item plus shipping. This option is great for buying used goods on sites such as Yahoo Auctions, Rakuten, and Mercari. Buyee works with those three websites and it's fairly easy to understand and navigate in my experience. That said, I've not actually purchased anything using these sites, so I can't really speak from experience what they're like. Keep in mind if you go this route, you'll have to pay a bit extra on top of shipping for the service provider. This covers the easy ways to buy Japanese music online, but I want to make a few points before I move on. Number one is never under any circumstance overpay for an album. There are a lot of sellers out there who will hike up the price of certain albums for international buyers. However, under most circumstances, and since Japanese music has gotten really popular overseas in the past decade or so, many of these older, out-of-print albums have gotten represses. Oftentimes, I've seen original copies of certain albums for well over the $100 USD range, only to get a repress for roughly $40 on vinyl. Even albums that are extremely rare that I thought I would never get to see repress ended up getting a repress. I cannot stress this enough. Just being patient and keeping your eyes and ears open will save you a lot of money and stress from dealing with scalpers. And that just goes for buying anything online, really. My second point is there are two downsides to buying anything online. The first downside, no matter where you live in the world, is the cost of shipping. Aside from scalpers, you should probably expect to pay $20 US for shipping at the bare minimum if you're going to import something directly from Japan. Sometimes it's more. I can't really say for certain in this post-COVID economy, but always check it out and make sure you're able to, or you feel like it's worth the cost. The second downside, and this just applies to albums you can buy anywhere, is your item could be damaged in the mail. For records, it's possible you'll get a seam split in the top or the bottom of the album, and for CDs, the case can get cracked. There's really almost no way to prevent this. It all kind of comes down to how well the album's packaged, and in the case for records, how durable the record sleeve material is. I've noticed many Japanese sellers will often ship the record outside of the sleeve, but inside the plastic outer sleeve, as to prevent the record from rubbing around the inside of the sleeve and damaging it. And sometimes if you're able to leave a note during your purchase, you can specify this. Of course, your local record shop might have an international section where you might be able to find a Japanese album or two here and there. But the last highly recommended option, but obviously the most impractical unless you manage to pull it off, is just to go to Japan and shop for them for yourself, which I can tell you I have plenty of experience with. Should you find yourself in the land of anime and good public transportation, the big four stores of Japanese music and media are Tower Records, Disc Union, HMV, and Book Off. They're all different kinds of stores with perks for each, so let's go through them all. Tower Records is probably the premier store for buying anything big name and new. I would say about 80% of the things I was looking for I found at a Tower Records store. There's tons of locations, but that said, not every location is considered equal. Some stores are bigger than others. I personally found that Tower Records Shinjuku being the best one overall, with the added bonus that they have a whole separate floor for vinyl records both new and used. Aside from Tower Vinyl, you probably won't be able to get any used albums here, so if you're trying to find something out of print, I probably wouldn't recommend this place. My first outing to a record store in Tokyo was at Tower Shinjuku, and that's where I got this one, Fooly Cooly Soundtrack number 3. I also got this one, Please Mr. Lost Man. These are like, you know, the only couple new albums really in my Japanese music collection, because I ended up buying the rest from Book Off. Also, of course, the Midori album. Next up, we have Disc Union, which I believe is Japan's largest and oldest music retailer. You can find new and used goods here, but notably, I think the used selections are where the store shines. This is truly a music store. I believe they have DVDs and other things, but music is their specialty. In particular, CDs. As far as my my CDs go, I did get quite a bit from Disc Union. This is Oz Boys, self-titled. I'm pretty sure this one came from Disc Union as well. This is Number Girl's first album, and this My Dead Girlfriend album. I searched for a while for this one and finally found it at a Disc Union. Also, I highly recommend this one for the audiophiles. Aside from the new and used music, they also tend to carry tons of accessories for your turntables and CDs, like cartridges, protective sleeves, and storage. Some other chains do as well, but I feel like Disc Union was a bit more specialized if I remember correctly. There are also genre-specific Disc Union stores, but more on this in a little bit. Next, if you don't live in the US, you might be familiar with HMV. They're a British music retailer that also happens to be huge in Japan. Though I will say both HMV and Disc Union I found to be very similar in a lot of ways. Like with a lot of stores, you might have to try your luck at a specific location in order to find what you're looking for, but I always found the stores to be pretty cool. So much so I got my very own HMV stamp card for how often I shop there. I think it's probably expired by now. HMV usually sells new releases, but also have used selections of popular and well-known albums, both Japanese and Japanese pressed music from other countries. For example, I was able to get my dad a copy of Steely Dan's Asia for about 2,600 yen. Like I said, I kind of love HMV. I actually picked up these 3 Number Girl albums there right when they came out, the day they came out. I remember taking a train over after class just to pick them up, so that was really cool. And then later on at the same store, they had a pretty good used selection, so I picked up this After 5 Clash album. It's a pretty cool city pop album. Like Disc Union, they also generally carry accessories for your turntable and CDs and things like that, but in my experience, I felt like the vinyl selection was better here. It's been a while though, so don't take my word for it. Last, but definitely not least, is Book Off. As the name may suggest, it's primarily a bookstore, but a lot of locations have other media like CDs, DVD box sets, video games, manga, and even figurines. Book Off is a great place to buy used goods in particular, and if you're on a budget, this is a super great option because there's so many different locations spread all throughout Japan, and most of them I went to offered a decent selection of music for cheap. Most of my Japanese CDs were purchased from Book Off just because the used goods market in Japan is so great. I would argue that 90% of the time, used goods in Japan remain in very good condition. It's so much better than the used market in America. Suffice to say, Book Off is really where the bulk of my CDs came from. I mean, there was just so much good stuff there. It's all in really good condition even though it's used. Some of it's really just like new, to be honest. Ended up getting these Persona remix soundtracks. We also got the Monogatari series soundtrack, which is kind of neat. We got Supercars 3 Out Change. This is 2 copies of the same album. I really need to get rid of one of these. And lastly, yeah, most of my pillow stuff, I'm pretty sure I got it at Book Off. This one maybe came from Disc Union, but the rest of them definitely Book Off. The nice thing about Book Off in particular is even if you don't find what you were looking for at one particular store, they have a website where you can look up an item and it'll tell you exactly what store has it in stock. It's great if you're in a populated area like Tokyo where you have the option to visit multiple stores in any given area. The only downside as far as I can tell with Book Off is they don't really carry vinyl records. Of all the stores I went to, only one did, and they were in the very far back of the store and the selection was not good. But this very well could have changed by now since it's been a while since I've been. As far as other stores, you might find CDs at big retailers like Yodobashi Camera and Shinsedo while on your travels, but it's about the equivalent as shopping for CDs at Target. Unless it's a big name like say Radwimps or One OK Rock, you're better off looking somewhere else. Now the big four aside, let's talk about some of these smaller record stores. One thing I learned about frequenting Japanese record stores is that unlike in the States, there are tons of small specialized record shops. Stores that cater to one specific genre, like a whole store dedicated to hip hop, another for techno, city pop, punk, and so on. If you're like me and you just type records into Google Maps, you'll probably end up at one of these stores accidentally without having looked for it in particular, but personally, I didn't mind at all. Japanese independent record store culture is just so cool, with each one having its own vibe, and besides, as a lover of all music, I could care less what store I walk into. It might take a bit of searching if you're looking for a specific one. Searching the area in which you'll be staying and looking up their website or pictures might help. In a completely random stroke of luck, my friend was flipping through a travel magazine and mentioned one Ella Records in Shimokitazawa, where I ended up finding this Yoshiko Sai record I'd been looking for months. Quick aside, I cannot recommend Ella enough. I think the Shimokitazawa store is closed, but they have another location somewhere in Tokyo. Both Ella and Face Records are great if you're on the hunt for some city pop albums, or just older albums in general, both Japanese and Japanese pressed, but personally I had more luck with Ella. This is another one of the records I got from Ella. This is Miko by Yoshiko Sai. This is one that I had to ask an employee if they had, and basically under the normal rack that everyone would just kind of look through, there's shelves of boxes of records below that, and so he pulled open one of those boxes and there it was right in the front. If you end up in Shinjuku and you're still trying to go the specialized route, allow me to introduce you to the vast network of disc unions that you can find within a few blocks proximity to the train station. There's about 7 different ones and they're all specialized from popular music to metal to classical, and even one that caters to Latin and world music. Keep in mind, if you're searching for a particular record, you might have better luck finding it at a specific store. There's a map online down to the decades of different music that each shop has. Lastly, say maybe you've had no luck finding something you want, or you go to a store and you found something and it was ludicrously expensive. If you're staying in Japan for an extended period of time and are able to ship stuff to you, you can definitely try online. Of course, the aforementioned Yahoo Auctions and Mercari are options, but for me, I particularly had trouble finding albums by one of my favorite rock bands, The Pillows. Luckily, I was able to go onto their label's website, the King eShop, and have these two directly shipped to my apartment. I definitely recommend doing this if they have something in stock. It was cheap and easy, and aside from trying to figure out exactly what my address was, I had no problems. Something to keep in mind with a lot of Japanese stores too is that if you're trying to cut down on costs and you happen to come over on a tourist visa, certain shops allow you to get tax refunds on your purchases depending on how much you buy. It's a great way to get a bit of money back, but keep in mind this only applies to people with tourist visas. As a student who stayed longer and went on a student visa, this did not apply to my purchases as I was given a residence card and actually lived there for a while. If you do end up in Japan and want to go to a record store, there are a few things to keep in mind in terms of etiquette. Overall, I would say the record shopping experience is pretty universal, but there are a few neat things I saw in Japan to note. Like with any record store, if you're lost and confused, you can always ask an employee if you're in search of a specific release. What I often did was I just showed them a picture of the album I was looking for and asked, "Sumimasen, kono rekodo ga arimasu ka?" which simply means, "Excuse me, do you have this record?" The anxiety of speaking to someone in a foreign country aside, either they'll tell you have it or they don't. If they do have it and it's a used album, you're welcome to ask if you can demo it. Many record stores that sell used music will have a demoing station where you can take the album, inspect it for any blemishes or defects, and test it out with some headphones for a few minutes to make sure everything is in order before you buy it. In a similar way for used CDs, you can always ask to check the condition of the CD or booklet to see if it's scratched or damaged. The first shop I ever went to asked me if I wanted to take a peek, but I was never asked any time afterwards. That said, it never hurts to ask for any used goods. Well, I think that just about covers it. I have instilled to you all the knowledge I have on this topic, and now it is up to you to go forth and keep the Japanese economy alive. I'm actually not even joking. I read an article the other day that said that foreigners are literally contributing to the Japanese economy by buying records there. It's kind of insane. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave suggestions and thoughts about this video or things you would like to see in future videos in the comments below. As always, you can support me on Patreon as well as check out some of my original music on Spotify, Bandcamp, Apple Music, and right here on YouTube. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.